Well, greetings again, my friends. Welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be really fun. I couldn't wait to get this in the mail and show you guys. You know, we've all been there. Every once in a while, we see something or we hear something, whether it's a song or food or something that kind of reminds us of our childhood. Well, what I want to show you guys today was from my childhood. And when I seen it listed on eBay, I wasn't even looking for it. I just kind of found it, and I was so excited to get it. I live in New England, and yes, I'm old. Let's say I was alive when Star Trek, the greatest series in history of television, was still in production. And what I want to show you guys today is something that I had a long time ago, and I didn't really have it for long, but enough where it made an impression on me. And we're going to be talking about Scrimshaw. Again, I'm from New England, and we have a history of shipping vessels and sailing vessels, and we live near New York. Well, New York isn't far, and that's where the shipping lanes are, the North Atlantic, Cape Cod, just a lot of nautical history in New England where I live. And when I saw the thing for the Scrimshaw, I was like, wow, I got to get that. And of course mine was ruined and destroyed. It looked nothing like what was on the box. But I actually have the Scrimshaw kit, and I want to share it with you guys. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Okay, so this is what I want to show you guys. This is so cool. Let me put the light on. So this is by Crafts in Whiting. This is the Moby Dick Scrimshaw kit, the American whalers' folk art, originated by sailors etching scenes on whales' teeth and bone. And I remember the commercial. I am going to look for the commercial, and if I can find a commercial, I'll put it up. But when I had seen it, I had seen the picture of the ship, and I've always been fascinated with ships, especially the sailing vessels. But I wanted to get it, and I actually did get it. I don't remember if it was for Christmas or a birthday. I don't know how I ended up getting it, but I did end up getting it. Now, a friend of mine had gotten the Scrimshaw, but he got the walrus tusk, and that's not the one that I had wanted. I had wanted the whale's tooth, the Moby Dick one. But I had gotten it, and what this is, it's a kit, and you actually you do a design of a ship on it. And of course mine was totally ruined. It really wasn't all that great. But I want to show it to you guys today, and remarkably, this has everything still with it. This is the 70s, so I'm really surprised and delighted to present this to you. So this is Milton Bradley, the Scrimshaw. This is ages 12 to adult. You can see the whale's tooth. Take pride in making and displaying a reproduction of this unique folk art. Now this sailor was in the commercial, and again, I hope I can find it, because it would be really cool to put with this piece. You can see the front of the box is actual size, so put my hand up for reference. You can see on the bottom, we got the pictures. You got step 1, we rub the design onto one half of the tooth. We etch the transfer design with the etching tool, and 3, assemble a tooth filled with plaster, stain, sand, and wax. Because it's plastic, but it does end up looking really cool later on. It says everything included contains 3-piece molded plastic whale's tooth, adhesive, brush, transfer design, etching tool, sandpaper, plaster, stain, wax, and easy to follow instructions. So if we look at the ends of the box, you can see this is Moby Dick, Scrimshaw, and this is product number 1307. I think it's the same on both ends. It is. And on the sides of the box, pretty much the same thing. Yeah, so both sides and ends pretty much have the same thing. So let's go ahead and open it up. And even the box is in phenomenal shape. So let's put this over here, and showing you guys the contents. And again, mine, I don't remember how old I was, but I was young enough where I thought that I could do it, but I wasn't smart enough to do it well. So you can see the 1/2 of the tooth, and you get in 2 halves, and I'm sure they put this in to ship. This was not originally included. So what you did was you put the boat onto 1/2. Then after it was done, you would put plaster on the inside of it to kind of give it weight. See, the pieces there don't go together all that well, but you can see how the whale's tooth would finally look. Let's put this aside for a moment. And we've got the sandpaper that they were referring to. Let's see there. 1, 2, there's 4 sheets of the sandpaper, and this is, it doesn't say the grade. There's a number 2 over there. Oh, this is 220. Okay. So we got 4 sheets of sandpaper, and you can see the plaster. And it still feels malleable, so we could possibly still use this. We'll put that aside for a moment. And let's see, what is this for? I think this is kind of a display. I'm not sure. We'll see in the instructions. And you can see the pen, the scriber, more of the shipping bubble, and we have the instructions. I'll go over this in a minute, but let's take a look. We have the paintbrush, and we have some jars now, and I think this is going to be the ink. This would be, let's see, whale's tooth, brush, etching tools, sandpaper, stain, wax. I think this is the ink that we would use to etch the ship design. This looks like it could be the stain. And let's see, I don't know if this is the wax or not. Again, we'll find out in the instructions. And lastly, for jars, we have, this could be the glue. Wow, this is old and this is in brand new shape. Yeah, this is the glue. So look at that. Look, this looks brand new. Let's see, and that's everything in the box. So we have the actual etching itself. Look at that. So what we would do is this would go onto the ship, and we'll go over it in the instructions, but just having a flashback. How cool is this? Love it. All right. So that's all the contents. Let's see. Is that everything in the box? And again, it's in great, everything is in wonderful condition. It's almost like they had bought this back in the 70s, just didn't want to use it, and put it in a closet somewhere. So let's put everything back. And lastly, we have the instructions. The Moby Dick Scrimshaw instructions, and you can see a finished piece. This is 130X1. And it's kind of like fold out. Let's see. Wow. Check it out. Check it out. This is really cool. This is someone's family history. It says, to Steve from Podsy. Now, that could be a T, from Potsy. And it looks like this was a Christmas gift. I love that. That's really cool. Alright, so let's take a look at... This isn't like a book. It's more like a fold-out instruction sheet. So let's go to the beginning. So this is actually like a poster. And again, this is in fantastic condition. So let's keep it like this, and we'll take a look. This is the Moby Dick Scrimshaw, and it gives some information. Scrimshaw was a tedious and painstaking art in which whalers carved all types of objects upon whale's teeth or whale bones. It was the American whalers' folk art originating from sailors as a pastime between sightings while long voyages away from home. Often they carved pictures of whales, favorite ships, or scenes of home using a very sharp knife and a ship's needle. Those we use as tools. With the advent of the modern technology, it is now possible to capture the flavor of the old etchings the easy modern way. In just a few hours of pleasurable enjoyment, you can create a beautiful replica, of those bygone days. An object of art that is sure to be a conversation piece, admired by you, your friends, and family for a long time. The contents of this kit: 3-piece molded styrene whale's tooth, the adhesive, the brush, the rub-on transfer design, the etching, tool, sandpaper, stain, plaster, wax, and easy-to-follow illustrated instructions. Keep etching tool away from small children. Parental guidance is recommended. Keep caps on etching tool and adhesive when not actually in use. Before you start, prepare a clean, flat, well-lighted work area. Use clean newspapers to work in protective surface. It would be helpful to have a clean, dry cloth and some paper towels handy. In a large mixing bowl, water, add, let's see, the way it's worded, a large mixing bowl, water, and a stirrer for mixing and applying the plaster. Alright, to begin, start by taking 1/2 of the tooth and lay it on a flat surface. Take the rub-down decal. With scissors, trim off the excess around the decal, being careful not to cut away any part of the design. The reason for this is that the decal will lay better over the curved surface. Remove the plastic backing paper. Place the rub-on decal over the tooth as figure 1, centering about 3/4 up from the base, or 3/4 of an inch. If you prefer and have any tape handy, you can use a few small pieces to hold the decal temporarily in place. However, it is not absolutely necessary, and a decal will stay in place once you start the rub and transfer of the design. Next, take the brush and using a rounded end, carefully begin to burnish, rub on the decal. Start at the bottom as shown in figure 2, working your way up from the center and outwards, as in figure 2A, to the sides until all the designs have been transferred onto the plastic tooth, and carefully remove the decal, checking to see that all the design has been transferred. Note, as you rub down the design, The dark lines of the design will appear lighter, indicating that the design has been transferred. Be sure all the design has been transferred before you carefully remove the decal. And we can see the figures 1, 2, and 3. So now you are ready to etch. Remove the protective cap from the etching tool and hold it as you would a pen. Start to etch at the bottom, working carefully. This is as not to accidentally rub off and transfer design with your hand. Carefully scratch over the design lines with the etching tool. As you scratch out the design, you will automatically be scratching a line into the plastic. Be sure to apply enough pressure on the tool and not only remove the designs, but to cut into the plastic. These lines must be deep enough to hold the black stain you will apply later, and also the subsequent sanding that will follow. Etch a complete design, being careful not to accidentally rub off the transfer design before etching. A small straight edge, such as a ruler or a plastic triangle, may be helpful in following and etching some of the straight lines on the sails and masts as seen in Figure 3. Now that the whaling ship is completely etched in Figure 4, sand lightly with a coarse sandpaper to remove the residue from the etching. After sanding, wipe off the tooth with a damp cloth or paper towel. Now we're going on. And now we're going to assemble the tooth. Put the tooth halves together to see how they fit. Notice the flange on the inside of the tooth that overlaps the inner edges. Take a small bottle of adhesive and using a brush, carefully apply a thin coat of adhesive to the flange and the inside edge of the second half. Fit the two halves together and hold for a few minutes until the adhesive sets. Note, a few pieces of masking tape applied to the outside would be helpful to hold until the adhesive is completely set. Next, apply a line of adhesive along the inner seam of the tooth, as shown in Figure 5. To further strengthen the bond, replace the cap on the adhesive bottle. Keep cap tightly on adhesive at all times when not in use. As with many craft materials, adhesive should be kept out of the reach of small children. When both halves have been adhered together, you are now ready to mix and fill the tooth with plaster. Empty the contents of the plaster into a suitable mixing bowl and slowly add enough water while stirring to give the plaster a thick consistency, as that of thick pudding, as shown in Figure 6. Fill the tooth with the plaster in Figure 7 to about 2 inches from the end. Now take the cone-shaped plastic base, apply the adhesive around the edges, and snap into place at the base of the tooth. Apply tape around the edge for added temporary support and to prevent the plaster from leaking out. When the base is in position, turn the tooth so that it stands upright. This will allow the plaster to run down into the cone sides for a stronger bond. Set aside until the plaster dries completely. Depending on the consistency, the plaster should dry in about an hour. Once the plaster is dry, more etching will be needed with the tool. Using the box cover as a guide, notice the crack lines coming up from the base. Either draw lines with a pencil first on the plastic or etch directly onto the tooth. Similar lines as shown in Figure 8, as on the box cover for examples. Also, help disguise the seam by parting edge of the tooth. Draw some crack lines with a pencil to use as a guide and then etch these pencil lines with the tool as shown in Figure 9. Be sure to apply enough pressure on the etching tool to scratch into the plastic. Sand the whole tooth lightly using vertical strokes. Then holding the tooth in your hand, sand the tooth horizontally, shown in Figure 10. Sand all around the tooth, especially the lower half, using the coarse sandpaper. This will cut minute lines into the plastic to hold the stains. When it is done, you are ready to apply the black stain. Applying the black stain, using a small cloth or tissue around your finger and a very small amount of black stain, rub the black into all the etched areas of the ship and cracks. Rub in well so that you can actually see the lines, as shown in Figure 11. Rub off all excess with a clean cloth, being careful not to remove any of the black from the etched lines. The more black you remove from unwanted areas now, the less you will have to sand off later. Now you must set aside and let the black dry, preferably overnight, or at least 2 to 3 hours. When the black stain is dry, sand the whole tooth so that only the black etched lines remain. In the lower half of the tooth, you will notice that there will have a gray tone, where some of the stain will remain in a minute grooves from the use of coarse sandpaper. This is desirable as it gives the effect of a tooth that is worn as aged. See Figure 12. So applying the brown stain. Again, using a soft cloth and a tissue around your finger and using a very small amount of the brown, rub this brown stain over the entire tooth, including the coned base, as evenly as possible. Next, with a clean dry cloth, remove as much stain as possible, rubbing downward from the top of the tooth as shown in Figure 13 to give blended and graduated effect from light at the top to dark at the bottom. Refer to the box cover illustration. Let the brown dry thoroughly, or at least a few hours. Next, apply a thin coat of adhesive to the whole outside of the tooth. This must be done quickly to avoid too much streaking, starting at the top using the brush with long vertical strokes as shown in Figure 14. Paint on a thin coat of adhesive over the entire tooth. Let dry for about 5 minutes and avoid touching any of the wet adhesive. Wash out your brush with warm water and soap. Next, when the adhesive is dry, sand the whole tooth lightly with fine sandpaper. Sand and remove most of the stain from the top of the tooth, leaving the stain heavier and darker towards the base, as shown in Figure 15, and is shown on the box cover label. After sanding, wipe off all residue with a clean, slightly damp cloth. Next comes the waxing. Again, using a soft cloth around your finger and using very small amounts of the wax, rub the wax over the entire surface. Let dry for about 15 minutes and then proceed to buff lightly to a soft sheen. Caution, do not apply wax too heavily. It is better to apply several thin coats, buffing after each coat, than to apply one heavy coat. Now that your Scrimshaw is completed, you can use it as a conversation piece, a deck or shelf ornament, paperweight, a bookend, or as a gift for a friend. And you enjoyed making your Moby Dick Scrimshaw kit, see your Whiting Craft Center for Whiting's new powder horn kit. And what they're referring to is the it's like the horn of an animal, and it's got a rope that's around it. You wear it around your shoulder, and it's actually, they would contain gunpowder that would go in for loading a musket, and that was a different one other than the, I never seen that one, but I have seen the walrus tusk. And that was the instruction sheet, because like I said, it's like a poster and there's nothing on the inside or the back side. So that was a look at the instruction sheet. And again, this is in magnificent condition. So that brings me to the burning question. When I had gotten this, I was thinking that this is something from my childhood, and I would probably have to put a lot into it because most of it would be missing. See, the listing just showed the box. It didn't show how magnificent the condition was. And since this is in mint condition, I'm leaning towards just leaving this kit alone. I might look for another one. If I do get another one, I'm sure this is in brand new condition. So the next one I get, I'm thinking that's the one we'll do, and we'll actually do the tooth, because it is pretty cool. It's really, really wild when you think about it. Putting the edges, you can see the flange that they were talking about on the inner part. So we would take the tooth, see how it's lined up on the top, Let me get it together first. And it fits together well, but when you glue it, it'll really come together nicely. And we would sand the edges off. So when this is all set, this is when you would put the plaster in. And lastly, this would go in here. Let me see if I can actually get it in position. Possibly like that. Probably how it goes. All right. So I'm not quite sure, but that's how the tooth will end up looking, like that. And again, the design of the ship is really cool. I love the artwork, the rigging, the mast, the sails. And it's from 1821. And again, everything is in wonderful condition. Look at the glue, the adhesive. Everything looks brand new. There's got to be a date on here. Let me see if I can. I don't see a date. There is no date on the instructions. I didn't see a date on the box. No. There's got to be a date somewhere. There could be. Okay, so on the glue, let's try to get you to see this. Yeah, you're not going to be able to. Well, maybe. This is 1973. So 1973 by Milton Bradley. Wait a minute. Milton Bradley, Byrne and Universal Corporation, made in USA. Adhesive 1307. Keep out of reach of children. Keep closed when not in use. As with craft materials, adhesive should be kept out of the reach of small children. Use adequate ventilation. Contains trichloroethane. Contents are 1/8 of a fluid ounce. So this is the only thing I can find with a date. And this is 1973. So we're going to go with that as something that's from 1973. And this was so much fun, reliving this part of my childhood. So my friends, until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.